Good shift of 72 hours. My dear. That was what my husband said to me before I left for the hospital. But I was released earlier than expected. After 48 hours on duty as a surgeon, I returned home desperate to rest. When I opened the door, I heard a woman's voice. While that idiot is working, we're having fun. She laughed. I answered and took them completely by surprise. How curious, because the idiot has already woken up. But what happened next? Even I was not prepared for it. Welcome to the channel Deserved Revenge. If you are enjoying this story, please subscribe to the channel and give the video a like to see the next stories. My name is Elena Vargas and I am a doctor. I am a surgeon, more precisely a specialist in high-complexity thoracic surgery with more than 400 procedures, 3 scientific publications, and an impeccable reputation at the Prestige Medical Center. I learned too early that life can break in half a second and sometimes we have to rebuild people who no longer want to keep living. I suture tracheas, align ribs, drain what remains of air after a double puncture, and save a collapsed heart even when the patient has already given up. But the hardest part of my job was never the surgery itself. It was the silence of the families waiting outside. I am good at giving bad news, but I never thought that one day I would be the one receiving them inside my own home. Some people believe that betrayal happens suddenly, like an accident, a stumble, a moment of weakness. But no. For me, betrayal is built step by step, like a poorly performed surgery. First the cut, then the bleeding, and finally the infection that rots everything. And sometimes the one who rots you is the person you love the most. Good shift of 72 hours. My dear. That was what my husband said to me before heading to the hospital with his bag over his shoulder and his uniform still damp from the last shift. He smiled. He hugged me. He wished me luck. What he did not know, or maybe he did, was that I would be released earlier. It had been 48 hours of medical duty, one of the most complex surgeries of my career, and it was with his mother, Mrs. Carmen. An aggressive lung tumor, partial resection, high difficulty, 3 assisting surgeons, almost 7 hours of procedure. And there I was with my hands inside the body of the woman who had called me daughter since our first family Christmas. I returned home exhausted but calm. The surgery had gone well and all I wanted was a hot shower, my bed, and perhaps a hug from my husband. But I found something very different. The key turned without problem. The hallway was silent, except for some muffled laughter coming from the second floor. I went up the stairs slowly, still with the stethoscope hanging around my neck, my muscles as heavy as concrete. It was then that I heard it. While that idiot is working, we're having fun. The woman's voice was sharp, relaxed, shameless. My heart did not race. It stopped. For several seconds I stopped breathing. Not because of what she said, but because of the way she said it. I gripped the handrail tightly. The anger did not invade me suddenly. It settled surgically, centimeter by centimeter, like a silent but lethal tumor. When I reached the top, the door to our bedroom was ajar. I pushed it with the tips of my fingers. There was my husband Sebastian, shirtless, lying in our bed. And Camila, yes, Camila, my sister's friend and a frequent visitor to my home. I had hugged her when her mother passed away. Now she was there in black lingerie, sitting on him as if she owned the world. She was the one who called me an idiot. She was the one who laughed. Both of them froze. The laughter died instantly. The air became dense and I strangely smiled. How curious, because the idiot has already woken up. Sebastian jumped out of the bed as if he had been electrocuted. Camila stumbled. She tried to cover herself with the sheet, but it was already too late. I saw them and now nothing could undo that. Elena, wait, it's not what it looks like, he stammered, breaking into a cold sweat. To me it looks exactly like what it is. A woman on top of my husband. In my bed. In my house. While I was operating on his mother to keep her alive. The silence fell like anesthesia. On the outside I seemed calm. On the inside I was already planning the first incision. But what happened next? Even I was not prepared for it. Because this discovery was only the first cut and every surgeon knows that the real bleeding comes later. I did not scream. Not because I did not want to. Screaming would have been the easiest thing. Breaking things, dragging Camila by her hair, spitting every word that burned in my throat. But who screams bleeds. And I had already bled enough that week. Sebastian tried to approach me wrapped hastily in a sheet with panic in his eyes. Elena, please, listen to me. Get out of my way. That was all. My voice came out low but sharp as a scalpel. He did not know that version of me. I went down the stairs in silence. I picked up my bag from the floor, the badge hanging, stained with coffee, my faded photo smiling as if nothing had happened. Behind me, hurried footsteps. Camila shouting my name. Sebastian saying what the guilty always say. It was a mistake. It means nothing. It was a moment of weakness. In medicine, a moment of weakness can cost a patient their life. In marriage, it leaves the victim breathing but dead inside. I got in the car, started the engine. My hands were still shaking. Outside, the world continued its course. Children on bicycles, blue sky. But inside me everything was in ruins. It was not just the end of a marriage. It was the collapse of all logic. If Sebastian was capable of that, what else had he hidden from me? How many lies had lived beneath our routine? I went to the only place where I still felt like someone. The hospital. I parked, took out my badge, put on my coat and mask. No one questions a doctor with a steady gaze. No one sees what is beneath the white coat. I entered the empty locker room, sat on the wooden bench, the cold against my back, and then I cried. But only a little. 2 dry tears. Without noise, without drama. I did not cry for what I saw. I cried for what I had believed for so long. Sebastian was not just my husband. He was my refuge, the one who brought me coffee at 4 a.m, the one who waited for me outside the operating room. The one who used to say, "You were born for this, Elena, no one operates like you." Maybe he was right. Maybe I was born to rebuild broken bodies. But now it was time to amputate my own heart. 3 hours later, I rented a room in a discreet hotel in the center, with no reservation in my name, without explanations. My phone kept vibrating. Sebastian, Camila, my sister, even his mother. I did not answer anyone. They had destroyed my home. I needed to build something new, cold, clean, without memories. I opened my laptop, created a new folder, and named it Reconstruction Plan. I could have called it Revenge, but I prefer it this way. Reconstruction. Because this time the scalpel would be mine and the body on the table would be their lives. The first 24 hours after a life collapses feel like the post-operative period of a major surgery. The body survives, but still does not feel. The emotional anesthesia is still present. Everything seems artificially calm. In the hotel I barely slept. I spent hours reviewing clinical records, not because there was an emergency, but because I needed to have control over something. At 5 a.m, I closed the laptop and went out to the balcony. The sky was still dark, as if the sun was also afraid to rise. It was then that I saw a message that had gone unnoticed among so many others. Sender, Diego Ortega. Subject, we need to talk. Diego. He was Sebastian's best friend. The last person I expected to see appear. Diego and Sebastian had been inseparable in university. Conferences, shifts, trips, parties. But 2 years ago they had distanced themselves abruptly. Sebastian never wanted to talk about it. I thought it was pride, male ego, just another fight. But now, at 3:47 a.m, Diego was writing to me in a tone that left no doubt. Did he know something? I replied with one word. Speak. He answered quickly. There are things about Sebastian you need to know, and I'm not talking about the infidelity. My heart, that traitor, began to race. We met in a discreet cafe, far from the hospital, far from the hotel. Diego looked different, thinner, with deep circles under his eyes, with that expression of someone who had seen too much and could not tell it in time. There was no hug, no smile, just a nod and a black coffee. How long have you known? I asked. Since yesterday. I bet you thought the worst was the betrayal. No, there is nothing worse than that. He looked at me with pity, with that look surgeons use when the patient will not leave the table. Yes, there is. He did not tell me everything at once. He let it fall in pieces. Names, dates, details. According to him, Sebastian had been manipulating funds from the hospital foundation for years. Phantom companies, commissions in other accounts, alteration of medical reports, all disguised as social projects. I started noticing strange things when we worked together on an outreach program. He literally erased me. Diego lost his position. He was falsely accused of malpractice, defamed, exiled from the system. I stayed silent at first out of fear, But then I knew it was only a matter of time before someone else got hurt. And now, that someone is you. I remained silent. The pieces began to fit, but I did not want them to fit. I preferred the pain of infidelity to this moral decay. Why are you telling me now? I asked. Because you can make him fall from the inside. And I do not want justice, Elena. I want him to lose everything. I stared at him. He was right, but he also had hatred. A lot of it. I had something else. Reputation. A name. An entire career built with effort. A trusted face in a hospital that had saved hundreds of lives. I was ready to destroy all that for someone like Sebastian. And then I thought, how many times had I been ethical with monsters? How many times had I saved hypocrites while my life fell apart inside? Maybe my image was already broken. Maybe the only thing left now was to become what no one imagined. Send me everything. We are not going to report it. Not yet. Diego frowned. Then what? We are going to let him climb higher until he has nowhere to fall. And then we cut him at the root. That was my first suture point. It was not yet the incision, but it was the beginning. The first thing Sebastian was going to lose was the ground beneath his feet. The secret of revenge is not in the scream. It is in the right whisper, in the wrong moment for the victim. The next morning, Sebastian sent me an audio crying. 36 seconds of trembling voice. He said he loved me, that he did not know what had happened to him, that it was all his fault, that he missed me. I did not listen to it completely. I deleted it, not because it did not hurt, but because now it hurt less. And for me that was a sign that I was healing. And all healing begins with a cut. My revenge would begin with what I know best. A precise incision. Without anesthesia. I returned to the hospital as if nothing had happened. Clean coat, hair tied back, firm gaze. No one knew about my separation, but I knew what to bring with me. Loose phrases, discreet comments, planted doubts. I started with the administration nurse, a talkative woman who never missed a piece of gossip. Did you know Sebastian is involved in a new organization? They say he is going to receive a huge grant. How strange, right when funds were cut from other programs. And Camila seems to be in those meetings with him too. I did not say it with resentment. I said it with the tone of someone who is concerned. She looked at me strangely. I thought you two were not doing well. I smiled slightly, sadly. I am tired of pretending I do not see certain things. That was enough. By lunchtime, the entire floor was whispering, and doubt is always more powerful than the truth. That night I returned to the hotel. Diego was waiting with a USB. Evidence, contracts, irregular payments, triangulated documents, all linked to Sebastian, hidden among the details. This could send him to prison, said Diego. And I do not want prison. Not yet. I do not want him to lose what matters most to him. The money and the reputation. Sebastian sold himself as perfect, exemplary doctor, loving husband, an ethical reference. But every facade has cracks. And I only needed to illuminate the cracks. I began to release hints. Folders left in the residence room. Subtle comments. Rumors planted with surgical precision. No one blamed me for anything. But the trust surrounding him was no longer the same. On Friday, in an administrative meeting, I heard from the hallway. Who authorized that contract with the consultancy? They say it was not Dr. Sebastian. He claims he has no idea, but his signature is at the bottom and his ID number too. Silence. Uncomfortable glances. Distrust. The first crack. That night I slept better than in weeks. It was not yet victory, but the bleeding had already begun. Sebastian had always been good at controlling what others saw. He knew how to smile at the right moment. He knew how to appear humble, appear a hero, appear sincere. He knew how to charm, manipulate and divert attention. But there was something he never knew how to do. Survive silence. And that is why, during the following weeks he said nothing. Neither about the separation, nor about Camila, nor about the rumors in the hospital. Silence. Denial. Control. But when someone powerful loses control of their own narrative, others begin to write it for him. And I was one of those invisible hands. The next piece on my board was Carmen, Sebastian's mother. Carmen was sweet, traditional, deeply religious and devoted to her son. She believed that marriage was sacred, and she also believed that I was the perfect daughter-in-law. You are always so dedicated, Elena, she used to say. You are the best gift Gabriel has ever received. I swallowed those words for years. But now I needed her to hear the truth with her own ears. I invited her for coffee as someone who needs comfort. I sat in front of her with a low voice, moist eyes and measured sadness. I never wanted to involve you in this, Carmen. But I can no longer carry this alone. She frowned and took my hand tenderly. What happened, my dear? Silence. Slow breathing. Calculated pause. He was unfaithful to me with Camila in our house. She let go of my hand and turned pale. Are you sure? I saw it with my own eyes after a 12-hour surgery. I just wanted to sleep and I found that. Carmen said nothing. I did not cry. I did not beg. I did not victimize myself. I just let the bomb explode in silence. The following week, Carmen stopped answering Sebastian's messages. She cancelled a meal, asked for space, and he did not understand anything. My mom is acting strange, he told a colleague coldly, as if he knew something. As if he did not know. And now it was time to move forward. With Diego we prepared a dossier. Data, dates, documents, a kind of X-ray of the corruption. But we did not send it to the police. Not yet. We had to send it to someone he respected. I told him who. To Dr. Mendoza. Mendoza was Sebastian's mentor, the hospital director. An upright man and one of the few who still trusted him blindly. We only needed to plant a doubt, a crack, a moral fissure. We sent the file anonymously along with one phrase. Not everything that shines saves lives. 3 days later, Sebastian was called to an informal meeting. He came out sweating. I do not know who is trying to sabotage me, he said, but something strange is happening. Yes, something was happening. And as a good surgeon I knew that before the final cut you have to let the wound inflame. And then with the sharpened scalpel, make the deep incision. People like Sebastian do not fear mistakes. They fear being exposed. And he was beginning to feel that something was surrounding him. A murmur, a strange look, a call that cuts off when he enters the room. I'll tell you later, said in a low voice. On Friday he left the hospital earlier than usual. Shirt soaked, restless gaze. He called Carmen. Voicemail. He called Mendoza. Nothing. He called Camila. She answered, but she sounded different, cold, defensive, in a hurry. Is everything okay? He asked. Why wouldn't it be? She replied. You are acting strange. Maybe because my conscience still works. Silence. Camila knew, or at least part of her did. What he still did not know was that Camila was also part of the plan. That week Diego and I began to dig into his past. Not his present. His past, before me, before the foundation, before his image of a good guy. Diego obtained records from his medical residency, internal notes, a complaint filed for lack of evidence, a former colleague who disappeared after the scandal. Her name is Sofia Duarte, said Diego. She is still a doctor. But she left the country. No one knows anything about her. Silence. There was a forgotten crack, a dormant trauma, a witness, perhaps afraid, but also with resentment. We got her contact. I sent her a short message without mentioning Sebastian. My name is Elena. I was married to someone you know. I do not want to expose anything. I just want to understand. What happened to you also happened to me. She took 2 days to respond. Then she answered, if it's about him, I'll talk. Sofia told me her story. Disguised harassment. Shift sabotage. Emotional manipulation. Sebastian did with her what he does with everyone. He charmed, wore down, discarded. She did not have the strength to fight. They isolated her. No one believed her. She requested a transfer. Then she left medicine. He destroys in silence, she wrote. Just like a poorly done surgery. On the outside it looks clean. On the inside it is rotten. I took a deep breath. Would you give your testimony? Is it going to be made public? Not yet, but at some point yes. Pause. Okay, but with one condition. When he falls, I want to be alive to see it. The next day, Sebastian lost a key agreement. 2 partners requested his exit and a group of residents reported irregularities in a social project. Are they hunting me? He shouted on the phone to his lawyer. Maybe you left traces. I was always careful. Sometimes being too careful draws attention. He hung up with fury and for the first time he did not feel in control. I observed him from afar. I did not smile. I did not celebrate. I did not approach. Because whoever wants revenge does not rush. And whoever operates on a heart knows that the mistake is not in the hand. It is in the moment. And that moment was already coming. Silence is a powerful tool, but the true impact of revenge is in the sound. The sound of glass breaking. The sound of a mask falling. The sound of the world realizing it believed in a well-dressed monster. I waited. I waited with the patience of a surgeon in front of a collapsed heart. And when the day of the National Medical Congress arrived, where Sebastian would be honored as an ethical reference in humanitarian medicine, I made my final cut. The event was live with open broadcast. Full auditorium, professionals, residents, sponsors. Mendoza at the table, Carmen in the front row, Camila alone in a corner. Diego controlled the technical part. Sofia, from another country, was ready to speak. And I sat in the last row, invisible, until the microphone announced, "With you, Dr. Sebastian." Applause. He went up, smiled, did what he always knew how to do. Appear human. I feel honored, moved and deeply committed to the values of this profession. He spoke for 4 minutes, and just when he said, "Being a doctor is being a mirror of integrity," I saw the signal. The giant screen turned on. First the documents, then the illegal transfers, fragments of audios, cloned contracts. The room began to stir, and then Sofia's face appeared. My name is Sofia Duarte. I was a resident with Dr. Sebastian. Today I no longer practice medicine because he took it from me. Silence. Then the video of a patient who did not receive treatment due to financial decisions of his foundation. And then the recorded voice of Carmen saying, "If I had known half of what he did, I would have raised another son." Sebastian stood paralyzed. That is false. What is this? A trap? An edit? A campaign against me? He shouted, stepped down from the stage, hit the microphone, but the people already knew. Mendoza did not defend him. Camila left without looking back, and the looks in the auditorium cut him like a scalpel. That was the sound. The sound of his name being erased from plaques, agreements and memories, as if he had never existed. That night I received one last message. "Elena, it was you, right?" I replied with one word. "Surgical." Today, months later, I walk through hallways where they ask me in a low voice, "Was all that real?" And I just smile, because this story was never just about a betrayal. It was about power, about silence, about men who believe they will never be exposed, and women who learn to operate in the darkness. In the end, I was trained to save lives. But some have to be cut out. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next story.